we're now going to have the U.S. launch of the book. And I want to invite Louise to come up here on the stage with me. Please join me in welcoming Louise Fresco to the stage. Louise is the president in Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and she is a member of our Council of Advisors. We invited her to speak one year because she was the Assistant Director General of FAO, and she was so stunningly brilliant that I ran across the table and said, please join our Council of Advisors. And in a weak moment, she accepted, and we have been so grateful ever since. And so she's going to show a video about her book and tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll go from there. So we'll show the video.
My name is Louise Fresco. I'm the president of Wageningen University and Research, one of the leading institutions in the field of food and agriculture, based in the Netherlands. And I'm really excited to tell you about my new book. It's called Hamburgers in Paradise, Stories about the Food We Eat. And it's really a very broad view of what food and agriculture are all about. It's based on my many years of experience working both in the developed world and in developing countries, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. I started as an agronomist, knowing something about plants, and my first work was on cassava, one of the world's poorest crops. But then, over the years, I learned that food is not just about calories and not just about production. It's also about culture. It's about the enjoyment of food. But very much, it's also, in today's globalized world, about the intricacies of food chains, of how production at one side of the world is linked to what comes on your plate. So I'm really excited to tell you how that works out in different types of foods and how food and culture and production interconnect. For example, what is the role of bread in our history as the first product, the first processed product man has eaten, based on cereals that we domesticated from wild grasses? And what about meat? Meat today is the bone of contention. Some people feel sustainable lifestyles should not contain meat. But man did not evolve as a vegetarian. We ate meat all throughout our histories, and it had a very important role to play. Animals can process grasses that we humans cannot eat. But obviously, eating meat today leads also to excess. It leads to problems with lifestyles and health. I believe firmly that if you know more about food and agriculture, you will enjoy it more, and also you will make better choices. Because it is difficult to know what is good today. Is good vegetarian? Is good biological or organic food? Is good something that is local? Or is the picture more complicated? And you will see there is not one single choice. But what is important to me is that you really understand how the food chain operates and how the food lands on your plate and what choices are involved. I think that food is the thing that's so important that it should really be featuring far more clearly in our education. We learn about history, but we don't learn in schools about the history of our food. Food is what connects us to the past, to those first farmers, to centuries and centuries of scarcity, to today, but also to future generations, to those who will live on the earth afterwards, and to whom we will leave the earth in the best possible way. Hamburgers in Paradise may be a fascinating title for you. On the one hand, it traces the history of the hamburger as a symbol, an icon, if you want, of the complications of food, something that was once hailed as a wonderful solution to suburban living, became the symbol of globalization, of Western expansion, and now has its revival as a gourmet food. And paradise. Yes, the book is about paradise, about beliefs, about scarcity, about affluence, about the efforts we have to put into nature to produce our food. I hope you enjoy this book, and I hope, above all, it will make you think and make you look at your plate in a different way for the rest of your life. How thrilled I am, and also how humbled
that I can stand here in front of you at this wonderful occasion and present the first US English language copy of my book to Ken Quinn. It is the friendship and the honor I've had to serve that make it such an appropriate occasion to do this here at Borlo 101. Because I feel this book is very much a book in the spirit of Norm Borlo, who I had a chance to meet at various occasions, not least during the period of 10 years I lived in Italy as Deputy Director General of FAO. And why is that so? Because Norm instilled in many of us, through his work, through what he wrote and said, a sense that we need to be evidence-driven. We need to base ourselves on fact, but also we need to tell the story. And this book is about very complex issues. As you know, food is not an easy issue. It's complicated, and many people today wonder what it is about. But Norm always said, let's talk about what we know and what we don't know. And food, of course, is not just facts. It's also emotion. It's also culture. And it is this idea of telling a story, and telling a story reaching out to others, that I think I've always learned from Norm and also from Ken. I've written the book not for scientists, although every sentence in it, I think, can stand up to scientific scrutiny. But it's a book about the stories I want to tell, the stories that I think touch all of us as we take hundreds of decisions every day about what we eat, hundreds of decisions that make up our food, our health, and our lives. It's been a great honor for me to serve for so many years on the Board of Advisors or the Council of Advisors here at the World Food Prize, not least because I can serve Norm's legacy, but also because the strong emphasis in this forum on extension, on youth, on telling the story. This is a book in which I've put all my passion, all my 40 years, yes indeed 40 years, time flies, of work in, I think, over 65 countries outside Europe and North America, where I felt I learned something, I gained something, I could bring something about the issues of food and agriculture. I started as a young student, and I was really reminded during Catherine's panel of what was my decision. Why did I study agriculture? I was trained as a tropical agronomist. I do not come from a farm at all. In fact, my father was a professor of philosophy. And I decided that I wanted to do something useful, not something vague like philosophy. It's only much later in my life that I realized that philosophy and agriculture and development have a lot in common. So it was really the images of the war in Biafra at the time, when I was still a teenager, that changed my mind. The fact that it was a coincidence that I was born in a well-to-do family in a continent where, yes, the ravages of war were still felt, but where I never wanted for one day. I always had food, I held shelter. And I felt it was my responsibility to do something with that privilege. And so through all kinds of ways of studies, work for the United Nations of many years, after, of course, my studies in Wageningen, my alma mater, where I'm now the president, I ended up here with this book. It's my passion, Ken. It's my life. It's my belief that science can help us forward, but not just science. It's also about stories. So I would like to give this first copy to you, because I think of no other person who could be more suited to understand that this is really about what I feel. You know me so well. And this is, I think, what I would like everybody to share, how wonderful it is that science has brought us where we are. And yes, there are questions. Yes, there are things we haven't solved. But we can move forward. And I think it's in Norm's spirit that we will move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wow. This is so wonderful. Louise, thank you. I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am that you would give me this first copy as you launch the book in the United States. I want to read you something that someone wrote about the book to give you a sense of this. It says, in a mesmerizing tour de force by an author who has clearly established herself as the Renaissance woman of global agriculture, Louise Fresco tracks the 10,000-year evolution of human agriculture in search of the paradise of abundance. Throughout this book, she weaves the extraordinary cultural intersection of art, poetry, and religion with science and technology, and confronts the dichotomy of a hamburgerized 21st century world of overabundance and painful scarcity. Now, the person who wrote that was me. I was given the privilege of reading this and offering a blurb, as it's referred to, on the book. And I knew Louise was smart, was brilliant, insightful, but I cannot think of another person alive who could have done this and written this book. It is so incredibly extraordinary. As we were just talking on the panel about science and the arts and that, and you have taken all of this and woven it together in such a fascinating way. So I know we have a lot of people who are registered here from land-grant institutions. So I'm offering today my suggestion, if it could be in order, I would, is that every land-grant institution should require every student who goes there, at least the ones in the College of Agriculture, to take an introductory course. It ought to be called Borlaug 101. It ought to be, right? Right? You shouldn't graduate from Iowa State or Minnesota or Texas A&M without taking one course in the history of agriculture. Otherwise, you could have gone to the University of Iowa, girl, right? Don't tell Steve Leith I said that. And this would be the textbook and required reading for it, because everybody should know this story. Louise, thank you. Thank you for writing this. Thank you for making this incredible contribution to human knowledge and understanding. Thank you for the leadership you provide. And we're talking about example for girls in STEM. Here is the example for girls in STEM right here, Louise Fresco. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this was very nice. Okay. Thank you.